What's good, YouTubers and YouTubettes? This is JB Sports back again with another one. Iron Mike Tyson has here recently been dropping a couple of videos of him training, sparking speculation about his comeback into the sport of boxing. You know, he's been working on the heavy bag, being real explosive, working on the mitts with a trainer, being real explosive. A lot of people speculated that Iron Mike Tyson was going to come out of retirement and fight again. Now we have an opponent. An opponent he's going to fight is Roy Jones Jr. And the fight is going to take place in Carson, California at Dignity Health Sports Park, formerly known as the Home Depot Center in Carson, California. The stadium seats 27,000. As you know, last season it was the home of the Los Angeles Chargers as they played their 8 home games there. And that's going to be the location of the fight between Mike Tyson and Roy Jones Jr. Now, a couple of days ago, I heard that Canelo Alvarez, you know, who was supposed to be fighting on that date, September the 12th, he was negotiating with Callum Smith. He sent him an offer of, I think, $5 million. Callum Smith wants $6 million for that fight. And they were saying that September 12th might not be the date that fight's going to take place. They might have to push that fight back because of the ongoing negotiation. They didn't think they were going to get it done in enough time for both fighters to properly train for the upcoming fight. You know, and I have to wonder now that this has been announced that they had got wind that Mike Tyson was going to be fighting on that date, and they didn't want to go against Mike Tyson. And then we talking about Canelo Alvarez now. We talking about the cash king of boxing, the #1 pound-for-pound cash king of boxing. You know, I don't know if Oscar De La Hoya and Eric Gomez, you know, and Team Canelo, those guys got wind that Mike Tyson was going to fight on that date, and therefore they're going to move the fight with Callum Smith back. They were saying, you know, it's not going to, probably might not take place on September 12th. It could get pushed back. You know, I think one of the boxing writers mentioned that. I believe it was Steve Kim, and they might have told Steve Kim there when they got wind that Mike Tyson was fighting on that date. But it's going to be an interesting matchup. You got two legends. First of all, let's look at the rules. It's going to be an exhibition fight. They're going to use 12-ounce gloves. So they're not going to use the 10-ounce gloves that you normally use in the heavyweight division. You know, as in boxing, anything over 147 pounds, that's the welterweight division, they fight in 10-ounce gloves. Anything below 147 pounds, which starts at 140 pounds, they fight in 12-ounce gloves. So they'll be fighting in 12-ounce gloves, and that'll be with no headgear. So you got guys that are both 50 plus. I think Mike Tyson is 54 years old, and Roy Jones Jr. is 51 years old. Now, Roy Jones just fought in 2018, so he's not been out of the ring as long as Mike Tyson. Mike Tyson's last fight was in 2005 against McBride, and he quit in that fight, got knocked down, and refused to get up. He wasn't even that badly hurt, but he didn't want to get up and continue, and ended up getting counted out. And Mike Tyson was pretty much through with boxing at that point, didn't want to fight no more, had lost his love for the sport. And he said here recently that he's found his love for the sport of boxing, and he's willing to get back in the ring, man. He says the money that they're going to make off this fight, and that he's going to make off this fight, is going to go to charity. Now, this fight is going to be on pay-per-view. I heard it's going to be this company called Thriller. It's a company that's similar to the TikTok. You know, similar to the TikTok. You know, I got that on my app on my phone. So that's going to be the company that's going to produce this fight. It's going to be on pay-per-view. They're going to have live entertainment before the fight. So they're going to have a lot of different musicians and artists performing. I don't know if, you know, I would assume they're going to have some form of an undercard there with some fighters fighting on the undercard. We'll see what happens. But that's what we're looking at, man. Mike Tyson versus Roy Jones Jr. September the 12th, Carson, California. Now, this is just to let you know, man, you know, ESPN is talking about this. I think both guys were on First Take earlier this afternoon, talking about the fight. You know, the PBC just released a great card, in my opinion, Showtime fall card. It didn't get any kind of recognition. Didn't get any kind of segment on First Take or Undisputed or any other of these other Get Up or any of these other sports broadcast shows. He didn't get any kind of talked about. Nobody talked about that. You know, I think the Fox FS1, they did scroll it down on the bottom of their channel, you know, talking about the card, but they didn't have any of the guys like the Charlo twins or Javante Davis or Leo Santa Cruz, guys like that on the show talking about those pay-per-view fights that's coming up this fall. Didn't have that, but here Mike Tyson, a legend in his own right, Hall of Fame, 2 Hall of Fame fighters, both of them well past their prime, well past their best days. You know, and as soon as they find out they're fighting them, they can't rush to have them on their show. I was just on listening to a show on the way home from work, 6:10 a.m. They don't never talk about boxing. They always talking about NFL, NBA, and Major League Baseball. You know, and they talk about the local teams, the Texans, the Houston Texans, the Houston Rockets, and the Houston Astros. And even they were talking about Mike Tyson and Roy Jones Jr. fight. And one of the guys was saying, man, I'm telling you, man, Mike's going to beat Roy Jones Jr. And I'm telling you what's going to happen, man. He's going to end up fighting Tyson Fury for the undisputed heavyweight championship of the world. He said that, man. He said that's what's going to happen. So, you know, that's what I'm talking about, man. Guys that don't even talk about boxing is talking about this fight, man. That just let you know that sport of boxing, as of today, has got a lot of room to make up, man. They're just not. It's just basically almost like a niche sport right now. Unless you're talking about Mayweather or Pacquiao or these 2 legends that's going to fight on September 12th, they're not going to get any kind of play with the mainstream media. And it's just a sad situation, man. This thing here just overshadowed what I think was a great card that came out yesterday with the PBC Showtime fall schedule. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. This fight is going to be very, very interesting. Mike Tyson hasn't fought since 2005. That's 15 years. Roy Jones has fought recently, 2018. He should have the advantage. As long as this fight goes, it's going to be an 8-round fight. But the first 2 or 3 rounds, that's going to be danger zone for Roy Jones. Because Mike Tyson, as you've seen in those videos, he's very explosive. I don't think he's going to be able to maintain that over an 8-round stretch. But the first 2 or 3 rounds, he's going to be very, very, very explosive, man. And that's when Roy Jones is going to have to withstand that onslaught, withstand that barrage early on. If he can withstand that, I think he can probably slowly but surely take control of the fight and break Mike Tyson down and maybe win a decision. I don't see him knocking Mike Tyson out. You know, especially I don't see that happening. But I can see possibly him taking over after the first couple of rounds as Mike Tyson's slowly deteriorates and slows down and loses his ferocity and his punches loses their snap and loses their power. And Roy Jones will be able to beat it because he's the more in tune fighter of the two because he fought just 2018, so he hasn't been retired that long, so he's been in the ring and he's more in tune as far as boxing goes than Mike Tyson, who's been out of the ring fighting competitively for 15 years. And I think that'll be the difference in the fight. We'll see what happens. We'll see what transpires. But let me know what you think in the comment section. Who you like in the fight between Mike Tyson, Iron Mike Tyson, versus Roy Jones Jr.? You got to remember, man, Roy Jones Jr., back in the days, to me, man, he was the best fighter I ever seen fight. I'm just talking about pure talent. When he was on top of his game at the 160 pounds, the middleweight division, this guy was putting his hands behind his back, tagging people. He hit Virgil Hill. He hit him with a body shot to the liver. It seemed like a gunshot went off. It was like, bow! You could have been up in the Chiefs seats and heard that, man. You thought somebody got shot, man. That's what type of power he had, man. Dropped Virgil Hill, who was a great light heavyweight, man. A great light heavyweight. I ain't gonna say great light heavyweight. I'm gonna say that for George Foster, Michael Spinks. He wasn't on that level, but a very good light heavyweight. A guy that's should have been in the running for the Hall of Fame. He was very, very good. Had a real good career at the light heavyweight division. And Roy Jones hit him with a body shot to the liver. It was like somebody. I ain't even say a gunshot. Like somebody shot out a cannon. That's how loud it was. That Roy Jones was a guy that had speed, quickness, power, and he was just on another level, man. He's on another level, man. That's guy there. To me, he was the Sugar Ray Robinson of the 1990s. That's how good he was. Sugar Ray Robinson. If you look at what the boxing historians say, they say that he's the best pure boxer that they ever seen. Muhammad Ali called himself the greatest, but you ask a lot of those boxing historians, they'll tell you Sugar Ray Robinson, who fought at middleweight, light heavyweight, he fought at the lower weights. He never fought at heavyweight like Ali, but he was the best pure fighter they ever seen. And I say again, people talk about Floyd Mayweather Jr. They'll talk about guys of that caliber during the era. He'll probably be rated higher than Roy Jones Jr., but I'm just talking about at their best. Roy Jones Jr. was the best pure fighter. The pure fighter. When you talking about just pure fighting, athleticism, skill, defense, power, he was the best fighter I've seen following boxing, man, during the 90s and the early 2000s, man. He's the best. I seen Sugar Ray Robinson on video, but I'm talking about during my era of watching boxing. He's the best fight I ever seen. And it's going to be a good matchup, man. These two guys were actually supposed to meet up a while back, man. Remember when Roy Jones Jr. moved up to heavyweight and defeated John Ruiz, who held the heavyweight title. After that matchup, it was they was trying to set up a fight between Roy Jones Jr. and Mike Tyson. Mike Tyson was game for it, but this was a Mike Tyson that wasn't the same Mike of old. He had deteriorated, but he still was a guy that had power that could get you up out of there. So it would have been an intriguing matchup. But somehow they couldn't get together with the monetary value of the fight. And I don't think Roy Jones was too keen on staying at heavyweight at that time. He wanted to move back down and fight Antonio Tarver, which turned out to be a fatal mistake, man, because he struggled in that first fight even though he won it, man. He ended up having to fight him second and third time and lost both of those fights. The second time, he got knocked out. He got put to sleep without the knife quill in the second fight against Tarver. So he should have stayed at heavyweight, man. When you drop down and lose all that muscle and lose all that weight, he never was the same after moving back down from heavyweight to light heavyweight. That was a 25-pound drop in muscle and weight that cost him dearly. And that's when them two guys were supposed to be fighting. And another fight that they was talking about was Roy Jones and Evander Holyfield. Holyfield was game too, but I think Roy Jones didn't want to fight Holyfield because he wanted to fight Holyfield a couple years back, and Holyfield turned him down. So he never forgot that, and now he was sitting in the catbird seat. He's like, nah, I'm the 8 side. Now I'm the one you want to fight. Now I remember when I wanted to fight you back then, you didn't want no part of it. And now that I'm holding all the cards, you want to fight me. And and now the table's been turned. I'm gonna treat you like you treat me. I'm not gonna fight you. So Roy Jones was just really capping back then after he won the heavyweight title from John Ruiz. Man, he turned down a big time fight with Mike Tyson, and that would have paid him a whole lot of money. And then he turned down a fight with Evander Holyfield that would have paid him a whole lot of money. He could have went fought Lance Lewis, who was the #1 heavyweight at the time. He held the WBC belt, and I think he might have held another major belt at the time too. He could have took that fight, but Roy said moved back down and fought his nemesis in Antonio Tarver, which I thought was a bad career move, and it cost him. Never was the same when he went down in weight. Never had the same success when he went back down in weight. So that's neither here nor there. We're looking at September 12th for Roy Jones Jr. versus Iron Mike Tyson. Mike Tyson looked good in them videos, man. We'll see if he can put it together in a square circle against a guy that's been fighting more recently than he has. He's been out of the ring for 2 years. You've been out of the ring for 15 years. That's a 13-year gap that Mike Tyson's going to have to make up. So we'll have to see what happens. We'll have to see what transpires, man. But I'm be looking forward to it, man. I'm just kind of sad that this is getting more publicity than the card that got released yesterday, which was showing a lot of guys that's running boxing right now. A lot of active fighters that's going to be fighting all the way from the month of August all the way through to the month of December, and didn't get no kind of play with the mainstream media. Here these old geezers, Mike Tyson and Roy Jones Jr. getting all the play. Everybody can't stop talking about this fight coming up on September 12th today in the media. So let me know what you think about the fight, man. Who you got? Mike Tyson, Iron Mike Tyson versus Roy Jones. Who you got winning this fight? Do you think it's going to go to a decision 8 rounds, or do you think somebody gets knocked out or somebody gets stopped? Let me know what you think, and subscribe to JB Sports, the man, the myth, the legend. I'll holler.